the physical act of working out is not just physical. I mean, we see men and women on the floor getting emotional of like, we had a member who had a heart attack on our floor, like went into cardiac arrest. We had to use the defib, like the whole thing.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Brass Tacks Business Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to have Melanie Skinner, owner of Burn Bootcamp in Ashburn, here on the podcast. Melanie, thanks so much for being on today.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Just a little intro about Melanie, everyone. She is someone whose story is both inspiring and deeply rooted in community. Melanie Skinner is the proud owner of Burn Bootcamp, but her journey started in a very different place as a mom simply looking for something of her own. What began as a personal health journey evolved into a powerful transformation, not just physically, but professionally and emotionally as well. 5 years after walking through the doors of Burn as a member, Melanie became the owner, and she's since turned it into a second home for so many others. Burn is more than a gym. It's a space of connection, support, and whole body wellness. And through it all, Melanie discovered the entrepreneur she never knew was inside her. So wonderful to have you on, Melanie. And
Thank
first
you.
thing I just want to kind of go over is tell everyone a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and kind of how you got into Burn Bootcamp.
Sure. So I grew up as a gymnast. I was a gymnast through college, went to college on the West Coast at the University of Arizona, had plenty of injuries myself. As you may know, it's hard on our bodies. And after I met my husband and we got married and we had our first son, I was really looking for an outlet to like hone that in. I'd always been very active, but hadn't found my place necessarily yet. And I was referred to Burn in Ashburn by a friend of mine. Just the selling point was there's free child watch, and that was like enough for my newborn brain mom to be like, 45 minutes to myself? That sounds amazing. And so that's really how I was introduced to Burn specifically. And since then, I've had another son. They're 8 and 5 now. They're both very busy. They keep me very busy. Typically work out at 4:30 in the morning because once they're up, it's like, the business is needing me and people are needing me. And then the sports in the afternoon, like we're totally all in on all of that. So that's how I really came to live here. My husband is actually an entrepreneur. He owns 9 businesses in Loudoun County. And when the opportunity arose to talk about buying Ashburn, he was 100% all in. I was a little more nervous, like, oh man, that's just my place and that's my happiness and that's my escape. And like, how will that change? Will I do, there's so many nerves when you're spending a lot of money for a business, but also like, am I capable of doing that? In my life before kids, I worked in hotel sales. So I sold for Omni Hotels and for JW Marriott hotels on the West Coast. And so talking to people was never like a concern of mine. It was just more of the back end business stuff. And I was able to really rely on him the first, I still rely on him for a lot of my questions when it comes to the financial piece of it all. But yeah, we just jumped. I'm kind of like 100% or 0% personality. And I think that it has really gone well for me in business, but I also have learned a lot, how to rein that in a little bit when you're dealing with just so many moving parts. And we bought it in 2022. So in December of 2022. So we've owned it a little bit over 2.5 years. And it's just been the best. It's been so fun. It's taught me so much about myself and just the intricacies. I have a new appreciation for my husband who, has a large stressful load on him running all of those businesses. And it's probably given him some appreciation for what I do with the children because he, is when I'm traveling or doing things like that, he's stepping in more. And so it's been really good, but it's a lot at times. And being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It's amazing, but I always tell people, you think like you're going to work, like I'm going to work a little bit, like I'm going to buy this gym, and then you're working like 20 hours a day and getting up at 4 a.m. and all of that. So, the ebbs and flows of the business are not for the faint of heart, but I love doing it.
Yes, yes. It's so common with entrepreneurs. We have a very similar personality. It's either 100% or it's nothing at all. Is your husband the same way? Is he kind of have that same characteristics? Or
He's a little bit more logical, I would say, than me. he gives me really good advice when I come to him about certain situations and just like, you know, being such a community business, you really think about how does one piece of like one decision that I make going to ripple effect like through the community. We have over 700 members at the gym now. When I purchased the gym, we were right around 400. So we have grown exponentially, but with that, I just feel such a sense of responsibility to making sure that the product that we're putting out on the floor is the best every camp. And that every, you know, it breaks my heart when anyone leaves. I'm like, what do you mean? I want to say, I want everyone to want to be here, but I also understand that you know it's not a one size fits all for every person, and especially with fitness journeys, you know, you go through changes in life of like it worked then, it's not working now, and I always just hope that people, you know, consider us when they've maybe made a change and they want to come back.
And Melanie, what do you know, before you took over Burn, or even, you know, being a member as Burn, and before you bought the studio, did you have any idea that you would ever own one or have that entrepreneurial spirit, and
No,
obviously change your life as it has?
no, I didn't. I really my husband was 100% like, you got this, we can do this. I know, you know, I was a little more timid at that. I mean, I was like, yes, oh wait, I think, but what if, you know, there's so many doubts that creep into your mind. I have a staff of 30 women. And so it's like, I feel a responsibility to make sure that I can pay them every paycheck and make sure that they're, you know, able to provide for their families as well. And I would say I was unsure, but once I got into it, I was like, okay, like I can do this. I'm a very much a power, like positive thinking person. And especially again, like I think the gymnast in me is always like searching for perfection. That's just how we're built. Like, okay, well, it wasn't perfect. I have to be number one all the time, number one. Like, and sometimes, I'm sure my husband would say too, like it's exhausting to try to keep up with that. And so it's really helped me navigate that of like, you know, you aren't in control of every single thing. You can control a lot, but you cannot control every aspect of the business.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel like running businesses teaches us so much about ourselves. You know, a lot of reason why I started the podcast is to really shed light on not only, you know, how difficult it is, but at the same time, how rewarding it is. Was there a turning point, you know, in the last, you know, 2.5, 3 years that you were just like, okay, you know, obviously everyone's got those fears when they're first opening up their business, but then you're just like a switch flipped in your brain and you're like, okay, I can do this, you know?
Yeah, I would say, let's see, maybe like a year and a half ago, we had kind of taken on this new initiative within the brand. So the brand has like 350 gyms, and we had really decided, I decided like we're going to go all in on this. And it just changed the trajectory of the business. Like I just could see that when people walk through the door, we know their name, we're high-fiving them, they feel like part of the family, and they felt it too. And so when the members are giving you this positive feedback, like, oh my goodness, I'm loving it. You know, I feel so much better. I had migraines for years and now I'm not, like, and I know, you know, this being in a you know, like very member, I call member facing, client facing, you know, like once you're hearing that, you're like, okay, we got this. Like we're doing good things. And, you know, the community here is, this area is so large, but also so small at the same time. And my best, I mean, my employees are the best. They literally, we call it bleed blue because that's kind of our colors, burn blue. But really, like our members are who our salespeople are, because when they go out in the community and people are like, man, you look great. Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I see you posting about burn. Like, they're really our salespeople, you know, and they're getting their friends to come in. And then it just kind of starts going and going. So I think when you hear that positive feedback from your members, from the community, you're like, okay, like we're going to be good. We're doing the right things and we can really tweak things to keep making it better all the time.
Are there any skills, either from your experience in hotel sales prior to owning a burn, that you feel like has translated to being an entrepreneur, or maybe even being a mom, you know, a mom of two? Have you found some of those things helpful when managing your team? You've got over 30 you know, team members. Has that been something that you've always had inside you, or is it something you've learned along the way?
I mean, I used to joke as a child that I could like talk to a wall because I just like podcasts. I mean, it's like you don't have to really ask me questions, I can just talk. But I think that just being able to talk to so many people has just really helped me. I see those members for when I was a member. And so I look at things so much through the perspective of like, how will the members feel about these changes when we make them? How will the members feel about these events? Like, what are they looking for? So I think just being able to, especially maybe not necessarily from my previous career, but just being a member when I was a mom, I always use that lens to look through when I'm making decisions for the gym. And I think that that's really unique because a lot of times not all owners can live and work in their gyms like all the time. I mean, I went to camp this morning at 7:30, so I get to feel and like live and breathe the same experience that the members are. And so I think that that is something that has really helped me when I'm making decisions. It's just looking through the lens of a member.
And so you've gone, you said, from 400 over 700
Mhm.
members now. That's a phenomenal success. What do you feel sets Burn apart from maybe other gyms in the area? Because we all know, boutique fitness is a big one. Big box gyms are good. Why do you feel Burn has been different or, than any of the other gyms in the community?
Yeah, I mean, I think like just Burn in general, we offer so much for like the whole person is the way I like to explain it. Like with the free child, complimentary child watch, like that's speaking to the moms a lot of times and the dads who are like, I want to get the workout in. But I think that really the community is the biggest piece. We do a lot of community fundraising. Like I do a big Burn and Brews event in December where we raise money for laws. And we do like Thanksgiving bags. So just trying to be like, we're not just here. Like, of course, it's a business. We want to make money. That is how it goes. But I'm really wanting to affect the lives of the men and women who are in our gyms. And then they can go affect, like, broaden the reach within the Loudoun County community. So I think that that's just the biggest thing. Like, we do, like, for Mother's Day, we did ladies' night out and they went and did like artwork. And it's just those small little tweaks that make the community so much stronger because of course sometimes at 4:30 in the morning or at 5:30 at night after you're working and you've worked all day, you come into the gym and you're just like blinders on. And so being able to introduce people to other friends or colleagues they may not have been able to know in that way outside of the gym, I think is really what sets us apart.
For sure. And community is huge. With all those events you have, whether it's ladies' night or, Mother's Day or the brews event you do for the Laws charity, what's the biggest lesson you've learned when you do involve the community with your small business?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just how much we can really, like, especially as small business owners, pour back into our communities. And 99% of the time, those women maybe that we're donating the money to at Laws, I'm not necessarily looking for it to benefit me. It's not, oh, they're going to become a member and walk through the door. Like, that's not the end goal. It's that we are given such a platform as business owners in a community to be able to just improve the lives of those, not always that walk in our door, but are just surrounding us. And sometimes, a lot of times need that is support equally, if not more, than those that aren't walking through our door.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I feel most of us know the benefits of working out, right? We've got the physical benefits, but like you just mentioned with community, what are some of the mental and emotional things that you've either seen with your community members or the members at Burn that have benefited from engaging with you guys at the gym or at a community event that's really helped thrive that community?
Yeah, I mean, I think back to like when I was a member, I had a couple of pregnancy losses while I was a member, and it was like the one place I wanted to go to escape because I knew that there were other women in that room that were or had or will deal with similar things. And so, I think a lot of times people are like, "Oh, you work at a gym, like you must work out all the time." And it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, I do enjoy working out too, but it's more about the emotional and like mental health that we so much try to focus on, other than those 45 minutes that they're in the gym. And, we have women and men going through the divorces. We have, people's parents passing away. And it's like, this is a community of people that are all going through similar things. Like someone in this community is here to support you. And so I think, the physical act of working out is not just physical. I mean, we see men and women on the floor getting emotional of like, we had a member who had a heart attack on our floor, like went into cardiac arrest. We had to use the defib, like the whole thing. And it was like, that was a life-changing experience for so many of us that were there. Cause it's like, okay, we were meant to be here. She was meant to come to the gym this day and have, like where else is a better place? I mean, other than a hospital to have a heart attack that people are actually like able and willing to help you. I mean, if she was in a car, the outcome may not have been the same. And so it's things like those that you're like, okay, it's a gym, but it's more than a gym. Like it's the act of working out, but there's so much more. The trainers, especially, they do focus meetings with members and they'll recommend like nutritional guidance or, increase your steps, get 100 grams of protein, like, things like that. But sometimes people will come in there and be like, I just want to learn how to do a push-up. Like, that is my goal. I want to do a push-up on my toes. It's like, great. It's not every person that walks through the door is like, how do I lose weight? I want to lose weight. Like sometimes I have found that people will say that's their reason to be there. Like, oh, I want to lose weight. But really, as you get further down the road, it's like they needed a community of people, just regardless of the health reason, they just needed a place to belong. And so I want to be that place for them. And I know that all of my staff is just so welcoming. Like everyone who walks through that door is loved and adored the exact same. And I think that that's just such a big piece, knowing you can go to a safe space in a crazy world that gets crazier, I think, sometimes by the day, of like, okay, this is a space that's going to be the same and I can count on the people to be there for me.
And I feel that's so common, especially with gyms, boutique fitness. Even in my office, I hear it from clients all the time. What's one piece of advice you would have for somebody if they are intimidated? I hear it all the time from my wife. She's like, members will say, I don't feel like I'm in good enough shape yet to start a membership. That's the biggest objection she hears. So what's one piece of advice you would give somebody who, might be intimidated to walk into a big gym and it's loud, it's exciting, the energy is high, and they're maybe timid, or they're just a busy mom and they're too busy with the kids they don't feel like they're in the right shape to start working out? What's the best piece of advice you have for those types of people?
I mean, I saw this quote the other day. It was like, your day one, maybe someone else's day, like 365, right? Like, it's, everyone had a day one somewhere. Like, don't judge yourself off of everyone else who's been in the gym for 3 or 5 years. But also, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, no, everyone's dying in here. We're all like sweating. No one's paying attention. Like, we're all just trying to get through the 45 minutes. Like, I promise no one's saying like, oh, so-and-so is not doing a full burpee. It's like, we're just trying to convince ourselves to get back up off the floor. So I completely see how it can be intimidating. It was intimidating for me, even being a former athlete. I was, of course, like not in the shape I was when I was 21. Like, I mean, I don't even know how that happened back then, like living off Diet Coke and Snickers or something. But also we worked out, like, 21-year-old bodies are a little different than postpartum, like mother of two bodies. And I think the sooner that we all just can come to the grips of like, health is not the way you look, it's the way you feel. There's so many more factors that go into it. And we try to do that. I hope that I completely understand, but I hope once someone gives us a try, like one camp, they know that like no one's there to pick them apart. It's just to lift them up.
I'm so glad that you guys embody that at the gym. Was there anything special about Ashburn other than obviously you were a member there and then you ended up purchasing that? Stephanie, our patient concierge, said that it's a little bit of a special location. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, we probably, in terms of membership wise, are in the top like 5 in the country in memberships. But I just think really, I mean, it goes so far back to my staff. Like they're in there day in and day out. And I will tell you, even owning the place, sometimes, you're like, okay, I gotta go into the gym. All right, do it. It's raining. It's like a bad day. Like, I'm overwhelmed. But like the second you walk in there and you see someone smiling with a high five, you're like, okay, like I'm here, I'm ready, and I have a head trainer and an ops manager who have been with me, like they were both the ops manager and head trainer before I even purchased the location. And I just like couldn't imagine running a business without them. We've looked into hiring or buying other gyms or opening other gyms, like it's in the area. And I'm just like, well, I wouldn't want to do it without them. And so I just think it's such a family. Like we all just have the same heart for all of the people there. And I think that's what makes it so special. I am now the president of the board for Burn. So I was named franchise partner of the year last year. So that was really exciting. I was laughing because all of the girls were like, text Aaron, like to my husband. And he was like, I'm asleep. The boys are asleep. Is everything okay? I was like, I won. He's like, good job, but like the boys are asleep, so we can't be loud, and it's like that's entrepreneurship like in a nutshell, because it's like, well, like yay, but okay, we'll talk about it later. And I just think diving, like going headfirst into your members and just pouring into them. That's what my trainers and my burn ambassadors, and especially the ladies that watch the kiddos and child watch, like they just pour into people who come in there, and they just like can't wait to come back. And when I purchased the gym, we joked like, now you're seeing behind the curtain, because when you're a member, you walk in and you're just like, high five, this is so fun, and then you leave, like you don't realize all of the things that go into it. And I think that is like what Ashburn members feel like. They can't put their finger on what makes it different. They can't put their finger on like why it just feels like a happy place, but there is so much that goes on behind the scenes to ensure that that's how they feel when they come in.
What were some of the things you learned, Melanie, purchasing Burn? What was behind the curtains that, you had no idea was there, or some of the things that, you didn't even know you were going to get into that
Yeah.
you pretty quickly found out?
Yeah, I mean, just how these trainers and the staff know all the names of the members, like it's like still crazy to me. I'm pretty good about it, but like they will know 600-700 members' names, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, of like sending out the information when someone first walks through the door. We take a picture and we send it out. We're like, here's Stephanie, for example, here's why she wants to be here. She's looking to build a community. She wants consistency, and so then we all are able to know that about them and say like, okay, when I talk to them, like I'm gonna check in on her. Like she wants community. She wants to make sure she's taken care of. So there's just so many small things that add up. I would say one thing like specifically for owning a business that my husband told me is like, sometimes you have to eat a poo sandwich, like when something happens, like you don't always have to be right about everything. And that was hard for me. I've learned to like sit on things for a while. Like I sometimes will hear, someone will want to cancel and I'm bummed about it. And I want to reach out and be like, no, like I want you to stay. And because it is just a business, but it's not. Like when you own the business, and you know this better than anyone, like every person that walks through the door is personal to you, because you want them to love this place like you love this place. So I've learned to like just sit on things sometimes, like, okay, I'm going to give myself like 24 hours. Maybe my response will be the same, but like sometimes it's okay not to respond like that to anything, whether it be, behind the scenes on the business side, or just like even member facing of like, how do I want to handle this situation? Kind of like a 100 miles an hour kind of person. Like I'm up and I just go until I don't go. And it's really made me like kind of stop and think about things a lot more, and my reactions to things a lot more. I don't always react probably perfectly all the time. And, I try to call like my husband or my ops manager or my trainer and like have an opinion about things. But then I rethink, like, okay, now I've settled in and now I have maybe a different approach.
And with the team, you've brought up team multiple times, and
Mhm.
obviously our teams are so important. Is there something specific you look for when you're hiring a team member, or are there certain qualities or characteristics that you find that amongst your team that really make Burn special?
I mean, a lot of it is like being ingrained in the community. All of our staff also works out at the gym, and that's really important to me, because I think a lot of times, especially with our trainers, they're on the mic and they're, pushing you and pushing you. But then tomorrow, when you're working out next to them, you learn that like they're just like you and they need to be pushed, and like they're dying on the floor too. So that's really important to us, is just like being a really big part of the community. I would say like 95% from within like the membership, because there's a lot of things that you can teach, and there's some things you can't teach, and you can't teach someone to love burn if they're not going to love burn. So to me, that's like a non-negotiable, and I know that's how my team feels too. And it's okay. It's everyone's not going to always work out, and sometimes you do have to have hard conversations with people who are saying like, well, I want to be a part of the team, and you're like, well, and it's like, But I also try to reiterate too, like it seems really fun, but it is still a business and there is still a lot of work to be done, you know? And so we've learned like throughout the years of like, okay, when we're hiring, I don't necessarily do the hiring. You know, I have a child watch lead as well, and they are kind of responsible for their own team. So I'm like, if you think this person's going to be a good fit on your team, like by all means, like you're the one who has to like, you know, like really like make sure the team is cohesive. And so I think just putting the trust in them to make the best decision for the gym. Like if I wanted to go out of town for 2 months, like I would trust that everything would run the exact same way that I would do it if I was here. So I know how much of a luxury that is, especially being a business owner.
Wonderful. And looking back, Melanie, on everything you've built and being a member to an owner, what do you feel like you're most proud of?
Man, I'm just most proud of like, you know what? My dad was here last weekend and my parents live in Texas, but they come to visit but a lot of times they don't actually go into the gym. And my dad walked into the gym and he was like, whoa, like there's a lot of people in here. And the music was loud and the trainer was like yelling and it was like, and he was like, can I take a picture? Can I take a video? Which I just thought was so sweet because we kind of like become desensitized to how amazing it is. And so seeing it through the eyes of someone that maybe hasn't seen it, like that's when I know that we're doing something right, you know? And so I think I'm just proud of the just literal, if you walk in that gym any day, you will see the same thing, which is smiles, high fives, encouragement, like energy. So I'm just proud of what we do day in and day out and that like people can count on us to do that.
Do you train your staff on that consistency, or how do you, like when you said if you were to go away for 2 months, you'd have no worries that everything would run exactly the same? Do you feel like that's something that is a product of your training, or is it just the people that you hire or the culture that you have at Burn?
I would say it's probably both. I do think like I'm very lucky with the staff that I have, but also we have something, Burn has something called a blue carpet experience. And essentially the motto is every camp, every day, every location. So the hope is that if you walk into Ashburn, you have one experience. And if you go to a gym in California, you have the same exact experience. And so that was one initiative that I kind of like took on right when I purchased the gym. It was rolling out at the same time. And I think just being like, maybe it's the fourth camp you've trained or the fourth camp you've been here, but this is their only 45 minutes to make a lasting impression on them. So I think when you think about it from that perspective, it makes you like pour all you can into that one camp. You know, I mean, if someone, I just always, and I know that the trainers feel this way too, like they just want to positively impact every person on that floor. And sometimes there's 65 people in there, and that's really hard to do. But it's amazing how much just you know, hey, give your neighbor a high five, that could impact them, you know? And so I think it's the culture for sure, but also just we all have very high standards. I have very high standards of myself, which then also I think kind of like falls down to everyone else of like, okay, I will own when I like drop the ball or mess up or, you know, could have done something better. And I think all of my staff is the same way. We take a lot, we do something called feedback loops. So after camps or after an event, we'll sit down and be like, okay, how do we think that went? And sometimes you don't want to hear what someone says, you know, but it's like the truth of the matter is it's because we all just want to be better. And when the goal is just to be better for the members, everyone's like, you're right. Like, okay, I'm going to change that or I'm going to work on that. Or next time from, you know, for me, sometimes I don't, I do a lot of the planning for big events and then I don't share like the details with everyone. I just kind of like, okay, let's just show up and do it. And everyone's like, wait, like I didn't realize we had to do this or this. So I always am willing to take feedback from my staff too of like how I can be a better leader for them.
What's something that sets, like if a person was gonna, if they're used to going to a Gold's Gym or maybe even comparing another boot camp style,
Yeah.
workout, what do you feel like they're gonna experience differently at Burn, whether it's the trainer or the community, that they might not get at a typical boot camp workout or a typical, big box gym?
Yeah, I think for me, it's like no one, I don't have to think, right? Like I just have to do what I'm told. Like the trainers are leading the entire workout, but also with that, they're giving modifications that are necessary. So if you have a bad knee and you can't do, you know, a full burpee because it hurts, here's an alternative so you can still get a really great workout. Maybe you're just doing a different exercise. And so we call it one-on-one training in a group setting. So they're really going around to each person being like, okay, I'm checking in. Oh, your form is incorrect. You know, we see injuries so much from people like doing stuff where like they're not, mind to muscle connection isn't there, or their squats, their leans like really forward or whatever the case may be. And so being able to have someone there that's holding you accountable for those 45 minutes and saying like, okay, it's okay if you can't do a full push-up, like do this instead. You can still get a really great workout. You don't have to do, like we always say, my trainer Brophy, she says there's no shame in the modifying game. And it's so true, and so much we see at box gyms, people are like, that guy is doing it, I'm going to do it too. And I'm going to like, throw my shoulder out because I'm trying to lift something heavy. Just having an expert in there to be able to say like, hey, like that doesn't look comfortable, let's try something else and ensure you still get a good workout. I think that's what sets burn apart, just being able to have someone hands-on with you.
And I'm so glad you guys do that, because I'm sure a lot of members might be embarrassed when a trainer comes by to do a modification, but exactly like you said, it's there's no shame in the modification games.
And you know what? We have trainers who have injuries too that are like that modify. So that's just another reason that I love having them work out there, because it's like, I also play tennis, and sometimes like my hip is hurting, so I'm not doing the entire workout. And then you talk about like pregnant moms, there's moms to be in there that were like, hi, you shouldn't be hanging from there. Like you're too far along. And it's like, there's so much information, especially when it comes to pregnancies, of like, you should do this or you shouldn't do this, or you can, or maybe, or, and we're always like, talk to your doctor. But like, this is how, we try to be really good about saying like, here's a modification. If you're pregnant, here's how you modify, so that you, like you said, I don't want people to have to always ask for modifications, because sometimes it's even more embarrassing to be like, hey, I can't fully do that. Like, what else should I do? So the trainers are really good about giving all of the modifications ahead of time so that you know what you can do if you can't do the full exercise.
I'm so glad you brought up pregnant moms. If anyone is listening and they're pregnant, please continue working out while you're pregnant. I get that so often from clients. Oh, my doctor said I shouldn't be exercising. What do you guys hear from your members that are pregnant? Are they sometimes hesitant to come and work out, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it just so depends on the person. I did IVF for my second child, and I remember being like, I am just like so terrified to work out. But just being able, again, like, especially when you're a mom, if this is your second or third or fourth kid, it's like, these are still your 45 minutes for you. Like, even just stepping it out and getting some sort of exercise that you are comfortable with is so important. And we try to always just meet them where they are. So if they're unsure, we encourage them like, you can totally come, we can modify, keep you safe. But I also do certainly understand that it's, especially for moms that have a hard time getting pregnant, it's like, okay, I don't want to feel responsible if I do something wrong. We know that's not true, but like in our heads, we're trying so hard just to like be like the best little like house for that baby, that we don't want to like do anything that could, have a consequence, I guess.
Absolutely. What do you feel more people understood about community and fitness, or community in the fitness space? Or what's the biggest misconception you find a lot of, members have, or maybe people that want to be potential members have about, the community and the fitness that you guys do at Burn?
Yeah, I mean, we hear a lot of times like, I'm an introvert, I don't want to do like all the high fives, like there's a lot of extroverts, but there's also so many introverts in the gym that like, it's not like we're sitting there like, you have to high five someone or you're going to go run a lap. It's like, okay, like, there is a space for everyone. But I think for me, the community piece keeps people so accountable. Like that is really the biggest thing. We hear a lot of people that come in, they'll be like, I've been riding my Peloton, but like my kids interrupt me, or like it's hard for me, I find myself not getting on as much or whatever. And we're like, well, you have people, we reach out to people after 2 weeks if we haven't seen them, like, hi, is everything okay? We miss you, come into the gym. And people are so grateful for that, of like, oh, wow, like, okay, like, you're right. I do need to prioritize getting in the gym, especially, we call it Maycember, because there's like, May is such a crazy month with Mother's Day, end of school, Memorial Day, preparing for summer, like all the things, all the school events. And we're like, prioritize yourself, because when you are doing that, we're just like, I mean, I know myself, I'm just a better mother and more patient business owner, mom, wife, when I have like been able to do that. It's so counterintuitive. People are like, I'm so tired, I don't want to go to the gym. But I'm like, I promise you will walk out like more energized after the gym, even though you think it would be the other way around. So I would just say, if you're an introvert, try us out. Like, don't be afraid to say like, hey, I'm kind of an introvert. if I'm kind of off in a corner, don't be worried. Like, totally fine. I totally understand that.
What have you learned juggling the business, being a mom of two? Or number one, I guess, how do you juggle both of them? And is there anything that you've learned now that you've been in business for the last 3 years that you've been able to transfer to being a mom as well?
Yeah, it's funny because I was a stay-at-home mom. Like once I had the boys, I was a stay-at-home mom for like 5 years. And when we bought the gym, I had told my husband, like, it's so important to me for the boys to essentially still think I'm a stay-at-home mom because I grew up with a stay-at-home mom and I was just like, I want to be there for all of the things, all the things. But that's like, to be honest, just not realistic. Not for what I wanted to make the gym into. And so I think just understanding that like it is a constant juggling act. And, really the boys are love to like come to the gym, see the gym, like go to the events, like go to Child Watch, help me, like now they think they can lift weights and I'm like, okay, like, you're 8, you weigh 40 pounds, like you can't be lifting a 10-pound weight. But I think it's been so nice for me to see them like understand, you know, what I do and just how much we sacrifice to like give them everything that we want to. I mean, they see that with my husband so much. He owns tax businesses. So from like January to like April 18th, like he's like crazy working 7 straight days. And that's a really hard time for me just because I'm trying to like, it's a busy time in the gym too. Obviously, January is like crazy in fitness, the fitness industry in general. And so, you know, I would say I don't know that I balance it all the time. Like there's always just going to be some days where you're like doing more motherhood pieces and then other days where you're having to do more business items. But I try to wake up like my number one non-negotiable is waking up before they do. Like whether that even means I'm just having a cup of coffee or checking my email or like sometimes going on a walk, like they get up at the I get up the crack of dawn, they also get up the crack of dawn. So sometimes that means I have to be up at like 4 a.m. to make sure I have an hour. But that just kind of like sets my day. Like I don't like wake up, like it's like okay, then it just like the rat race starts a little bit, and um so I just look back at myself thinking like how hilarious I was. Like I just want the boys to think that I'm still a stay-at-home mom. It's like I don't know where that like really came from in my head of just worrying that they were going to like it's just what I was used to, like for that's all they knew. So it's easier now with them both being in school full time and having the days to do that, but there's still sacrifices that are made. I have to travel to Charlotte and miss their last day of school, which I hate, but it's like that's part of it, and like I hate that more than they probably even care. Like they're like, oh, okay, mom's not here. Like, all right, last day of second grade, big deal, but I just know when I make commitments to things, I'm like, nope, I made a commitment, like I'm gonna make it work, even though of course you have to sacrifice things.
I'm glad you mentioned non-negotiables earlier, and one of them is waking up before the kids and all the craziness starts. Being working out. Is there any other non-negotiables or any other things that you're just like I have to have this in my day or in my week to just be able to recharge myself so I can be a good mom, so I can be a good business owner? Are there any couple non-negotiables in addition to getting up before the kids that you just have to do so that you have the energy and the drive to just keep on going?
I love walks. Like I love walking. I even when it's freezing outside, I'll like bundle up like just the fresh air, and I'm not like race walking or making, like breaking any records or anything, but I love listening to like a podcast and just kind of being able to zone out and just go. I can't answer emails on like when I'm walking and stuff like that. So it's just really making sure I have that time. I try to get into the gym, I would say 5 to 6 days a week, just depending on what my week looks like. My husband travels as well sometimes, so sometimes it just doesn't work. I mean, a Diet Coke is like a non-negotiable.
That's great.
So, I mean, I love coffee, but I like reading, just trying to make time, even if it's like 30 minutes, like I would like Bravo TV, which is like so bad for you, but I can just like, my husband will want to watch like a really cool documentary. I'm like, I don't want to think. I just want to like look at like just zone out and be like, see, it could be crazier. Life could be crazier, when you're watching these things. But I would just say like making sure I just have time for myself, even if it's 30 minutes. But Like on Mother's Day, I woke up and I was like doing work in bed, and it was just so nice because I wasn't like having to run out of bed. Like I don't even mind the doing of the work. It's just sometimes when you're trying to do it and like in between baseball drop off and lacrosse practice, like that's when it feels overwhelming. So just trying to utilize my time as best as I can. But some days that means like laying on the couch and watching Law and Order. So just knowing that your body sometimes is like, okay, you've had enough. And like I said, I play tennis. That's kind of like my own like separate thing. The gym used to be my escape, and it still is. But when I'm in there, I notice like the retail wall needs restocked, or this shirt is hanging crooked. And then it's just like, you're just always on when you're in there because I just want to make it the best. And tennis is something that I kind of get to do like separate from that. And it's still exercise and it's outside. So it checks a
Yes.
lot of boxes.
And I feel like that's very common for entrepreneurs. It's hard for us to recover or just like
Yeah.
turn it off, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like raising kids, the business. It's just there's always something that needs to be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
What do you think
Or
it
like,
is?
you probably, if you're like me, you like wake up at like 1 in the morning and you're like, shoot, I have to do this graphic in Canva. It's like, like your mind is just like shutting it off is just really difficult.
Sure, sure. What are some things that are coming up with Burn, or if somebody was interested in coming, to do a workout at Burn, what would you say to them? How would you describe it? How is it different than a typical workout or a boot camp class?
Yeah, so we currently have a 7-day free trial, so you can come try. We're closed on Sundays, so it's really 6 camps in 7 days. And you can come try, we have different days. So like today was push pull, tomorrow is metabolic conditioning. So you're gonna get a different workout every single day. Like there is no two workouts that are the same. We publish on Sundays like what the workouts are, just like tomorrow was leg day, Tuesday is upper body, Wednesday is conditioning. So it just always switches everything up, you know. And what you're going to get is just 45 minutes of whatever you need. Like I said, sometimes for people that's lifting really heavy weights, and sometimes they're just proud of themselves for picking up a 10-pound weight. And we see so many times people come in like, oh, I can't pick up 10 pounds. And then before the end of camp, they're curling feens, and you're like, see, like you don't give yourself enough credit. So I think that come in with an open mind and just like a yearning for the community and just something for yourself. And you can try us out and see what you think.
What's next for Burn Ashburn? What are your goals, or in the near future, do you have any big events coming up or any other, I guess, milestones you're trying to hit?
Yeah. Our next big event is Summit, which is just like all of the burns come together and we all learn from each other, franchise partners, lead trainers, ops managers, and we kind of like it's just our big like kickoff really. And that's going to be in Texas in the end of June. So that's always just a really good time to get reinvigorated and like for the rest of the year. And then one of our trainers, she's competing in athlete games, which is like, kind of like they compete against each other. You have to be a trainer and you do all these workouts across the US, and then you get to move on to regionals and finals. And so that's really fun. That's exciting to cheer her on. Excuse me. And I mean, just like keep growing in terms of like just keep expanding our reach into the community, and finding people that didn't know that they needed us a lot of times, and just being able to give back to other small businesses. I love like we're currently advertising on the back of the Dulles Little League like teams, and I love doing stuff like that. We're sponsoring a Belmont Sharks this summer, like things like that. I just love being able to do those things because that's just more affecting so many members of the community and inviting them to see just like how fitness can change you, not necessarily your body or your weight all the time, but it's like it's those non-scale victories that we celebrate more than anything else.
And where can people find you, Melanie, if they're interested in coming by and trying that 7-day free trial? How can they get in contact with you?
Sure. So the best thing to do is follow us on Instagram, which is Burn Bootcamp Ashburn VA. And then if you go to our website, which is burnbootcamp.com/Ashburn-VA, you can sign up for the 7-day free trial right there immediately. And then we reach out to you and book your first camp so that we know that you're coming and we have all your waivers and everything on file. And then we can be prepared to like welcome a new face.
Awesome. Well, Melanie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Anyone who's listening, it's never too late to start working out. Check out Melanie at Ashburn Burn Boot Camp. And thanks so much for being on, Melanie. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome.